We had a rough day yesterday.
Yeah, I know yesterday was very dramatic and traumatic for anybody in Tallahassee or anyone that goes to Florida State or has a kid that is at Florida State. Very scary day there yesterday, and it's pretty much the top story on the national news. Your daughter is there, and I was even getting texts. I can only imagine how many you got asking to see if your daughter was okay, and thankfully she was. Now, what did she exactly see with the shooting that happened yesterday? And if you did somehow miss all the news, there was a 20-year-old that got his mom's handgun and decided to try to do some shooting on campus, and unfortunately took the lives of 2 non-students. Several others were injured in the shooting that happened, and it sounded like he did it right kind of at the heart of, I guess, the campus green in that area.
Yeah, right by the student union, which it's just crazy the way things work out. You know, Mags was supposed to go to the student union and get her ID because she needed a new ID.
Okay.
And she was supposed to go there right around that time, but her friend told her not to go. Her friend said, no, you should go to the library and study for your test at 2:30 and then go to the student union after and get your ID. And Mags was like, yeah, that's a good idea. So she was, you know, in 2 buildings over from the student union and the library up on the 3rd floor. And she and I were texting because we were talking about a bill she had to pay, and she was going to use a credit card. And I was texting her back which credit card to use. Mm-hmm. And then she called me, and I was like, oh, she's confused about which card. And so I picked up the phone, and she's like whispering, Mom, the alert system just went off in the library, and it says there's an active shooter on campus. And I'm like, what?
Oh, wow. They have a pre-recorded message that says that?
Yep. In all of the library, there's a system in this over the speaker. It lets you know it's not a drill. There's an active shooter on campus. So she's in the library on the 3rd floor, up in a study room in the back. And none of these kids, there's a bunch of kids up there, they don't know where the shooter is. You're just in the library. You think, oh my gosh, is the shooter in the library? So I told her, close the door, flip the desk, and get behind it. So she did. She closed the door, flipped the desk, got behind it, and she stayed huddled there.
Okay.
And then eventually, like within the next 20 minutes, cops came through the whole entire library, clearing it and walking kids down personally and taking them. They had to like walk with their hands up, just like you see in all the videos.
Right. Mm-hmm.
They all had to walk with their hands up to a holding area by the dormitories that she lived in her first summer semester. So she was over there in front of an area called Reynolds.
Okay.
And then about 30 minutes later, they came through and said, okay, if you guys have to walk, you have to walk that way, the opposite direction of the student union. Mm-hmm. And luckily, her sorority house was that direction. So she walked back to her sorority house and just stayed there for the rest of the day and worried and worried and worried about friends until finally all the girls from the sorority were accounted for.
Okay.
Just crazy.
Did she hear all the gunshots? Could she hear it from where she was?
She didn't hear gunshots.
Okay.
So her friend Nicole, who was in Bellamy, which is a building right across from the student union, Nicole heard gunshots. And they thought the gunshots were in Bellamy, their building. And Nicole, when they were being walked out of their building by the police, she thought she heard on the police radio that there was a second shooter in a second building. And then there was police reports of a second shooter. So all of these kids were like, oh my gosh, is it not isolated yet? Is there somebody still loose on campus? So for hours and hours, these kids still believed there was a second shooter somewhere.
Yeah, that's kind of the problem, trying to get the news out and quickly, because I saw things shift from how many shooters to how many dead to whatever over the course of about 2 or 3 hours yesterday afternoon when I was watching the footage unfold.
I mean, thank goodness that this was outside of the student union at noon and not inside of the student union at noon, because it's beautiful. They've built a gorgeous student union. It's got restaurants and coffee shops and bars, and it's got a bowling alley. Like, it is a hub. There would have been so many more casualties if that kid would have opened fire inside the union.
Yeah. Well, it sounds, unfortunate as it is that 2 lives are lost and others are injured, and not to mention just the mental and emotional trauma of going through an episode like that.
It's not good.
No, it's not. Unfortunately, we've seen worse, and Florida State is no stranger to this. Back in 2014, they had a shooting in the main library that had happened there. I guess that's where was Magnolia in the main library?
She was.
Yeah. So back in 2014, they had 3 people get injured in a shooting there, and the gunman was killed, a 31-year-old in that case. So, unfortunately, this is something that's happened there before. And in Florida, they say that it is our 6th mass shooting so far this year. So they put the label on mass shooting when you have, multiple people that are affected from that. So just, these are the kind of things that you hate. And as much as the response was, I hear the response was fantastic.
Yes.
I hear that Leon County, that they really took care of it. I saw they had FHP even on the scene. And so they swooped in and quick.
They did. They really did. I was very surprised, in hindsight, looking back on just how quickly they were moving from building to building and moving kids away from the drama and the shooting.
It seemed well coordinated from what I've heard. I've heard nothing but massive praise out to the law enforcement and how they handled it, and said, wow, that was very impressive what they did. So
the only thing they could do a little better, and I hope they look at this, there is an app that all of the Florida State parents are encouraged to put on their phone, and it's like FSU Safe or Florida Safe or something. It's got the little Seminole shield. And so immediately that's where I went to go get information. I'm like, okay, this is going to be the place to get information. It was not. So Seminole Safe, get it together. Your alert system was like 30 minutes behind.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
and a lot of parents that aren't there, that's where we went because you told us to download this at parent orientation.
Right.
Seminole Safe was like 35 minutes behind updating.
Well, I'm sure they're going to really do a deep dive and analyze this as time permits, and hopefully find where they were great and say, let's continue to work to do that. And then where do we fall short? And maybe they'll get flagged on that, Virginia. And we'll improve on that. So what is your daughter's take, and how is she living her day today? And what about this weekend?
So everybody cleared out. FSU is a ghost town. There's nobody in her sorority house. They have canceled classes until today for now, but they think that they're not going to have them come back to school. So she cleaned out her...
Have come back at all for what?
That's what she thinks. She thinks they're not going to come back to school.
Are they almost done with, what are they on, semesters?
Yeah, they were on... She was taking finals this week.
Uh-huh.
And she thinks that they're just going to move it to all online.
Oh, really?
And have the kids do it that way. I don't know.
Huh. I know they have shut down everything as far as athletic events and those kind of things for the rest of the weekend in Tallahassee. So they at least wanted the weekend to give a little space and to breathe and coordinate.
These kids all went home. I mean, I'm talking about even kids that live out of state. Like kids went home yesterday. She didn't come home yesterday. She's still there, but she's driving home this morning. She was too shook up to drive.
Yeah.
And the traffic out of Tallahassee was insane. She would have hit Orlando traffic.
Right.
She wouldn't have been home till like midnight.
Because everybody's trying to get out of there. Is that why?
Yeah, because everybody was trying to get out.
Yeah. Well, pretty scary tale yesterday, unfortunately. Another one of those stories. We just have way too many in the news.
This is how we do. It's the KBJ Show.